Welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today because, well, we're going to unpack what might literally be the greatest heist of our modern era. And no, we aren't talking about cracking bank vaults or stealing priceless paintings. This is a story about the theft of something far, far more valuable, something that actually shapes your everyday reality, your attention. By the end of our time together, you're going to see exactly how your mind is being targeted and, most importantly, how you can take it back.
Let's start with a little test. I want you to really think about this for a second. When was the last time you thought about just one thing for an entire hour? Not for 10 minutes, not until the next ping or buzz, but for 60 uninterrupted minutes. Look, if you're feeling a little sting of realization right now, that very real personal pain of a fractured attention span, don't worry, you are entirely normal. Pretty much all of us are feeling it.
And that brings us right to the main antagonist of our narrative. What if your ability to focus isn't disappearing because you're somehow getting weaker, but because someone else is just getting way better at stealing it? Every single buzz, every swipe, every endless algorithm-driven scroll, it's not just a harmless distraction. These digital environments are actively and deliberately reshaping the incredible abilities our brains have evolved over millennia. They are literally the lockpicks breaking into your mind.
100. That is the number of times the average person checks their smartphone every single day. And yeah, I know half of you probably just reach for your pockets right now. Every single one of those notifications, an email, a text, a social media alert, is a deliberate bid for your attention. Even when you try to ignore them, just the anticipation forces your brain into a constant state of hypervigilance. You're basically living in this bottom-up, entirely reactive attention state.
Section 1. Rewiring the human brain. The anatomy of the theft. Okay, let's dive into exactly how this physical theft happens.
The physical evidence of this heist comes down to something called digital neuroplasticity. See, our brains are amazingly complex and dynamic. They constantly adapt to whatever environments we put them in. So, prolonged interaction with these digital spaces, it's physically reshaping our neural pathways. Because we're constantly bombarded with stimuli, our brains are literally being trained to prefer rapid bursts of novelty. And the terrifying result here is severe cognitive fatigue, shrinking attention spans, and what researchers call cognitive offloading. That's basically where we rely so heavily on our devices that we gradually lose our own natural capacity for deep analytical thinking and memory retention.
Section 2. The multitasking myth.
To really understand how this theft happens moment by moment, we have to look at the getaway car of this whole operation, our belief that we can do multiple things at once. There's a massive difference between true multitasking and what we're actually doing, which is alternating attention. We love to believe we're multitasking, typing an email, listening to a meeting, checking our phones all at the same time. But the reality, the human brain is simply not built for true multitasking. Instead, we are just engaging in rapid alternating attention. We're just jumping back and forth, which actually forces our brains into shallow processing instead of deep, meaningful learning.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Jumping between tabs, apps, and tasks, it isn't free. Every single time you switch, it creates a temporary cognitive lag. Researchers call this a task switching cost. Managing this endless flood of micro-demands totally exhausts your prefrontal cortex. It completely drains your mental energy and absolutely ruins your capacity for sustained, deep focus. You aren't actually being productive, you're just leaving the vault door wide open and wearing your brain out in the process.
Section 3. The ultimate irony. AI versus human cognition. Let's look at how this flips the script.
This paints a deeply, deeply ironic picture. Think about it. On the human side of the equation, we're suffering from fragmented focus, microtasking, cognitive offloading, and reactive attention. But now, look at the artificial side. Frontier AI systems, which are neural networks modeled directly after the human prefrontal cortex, are being trained to achieve deep, sustained semantic comprehension and hierarchical processing. The artificial brains are literally learning to think deeply, while the biological brains are being trained to just skim.
It is genuinely amazing, and honestly, a little terrifying. Frontier AI research is showing that large language models can actually learn self-restraint through iterative self-reflection. So as we rapidly lose our own ability to pause, reflect, and control our impulses thanks to endless digital feeds, we are quite literally designing AI models to utilize the exact self-control and deep iterative reflection that we are surrendering to the attention economy. Wild, right?
Section 4. The secret weapon. The power of flow.
Now, this story doesn't have to end in defeat. We actually have an ultimate defense system to stop this heist right in its tracks.
It's a psychological concept known as flow. Originally identified by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi back in the 1970s, flow is a state of unbroken attention where your skills perfectly match the challenge sitting in front of you. When you hit this sweet spot, time basically disappears. You are completely absorbed. It's this deeply satisfying state where human performance reaches just extraordinary levels, all without that feeling of forced grinding struggle.
We do need to make a really quick, critical distinction here, though. Flow is not the same thing as hyperfocus. See, flow is highly productive. It's a positive absorption that yields optimal performance and deep satisfaction. Hyperfocus, on the other hand, can sometimes be a negative state where a person is sort of captured by an activity. Think about playing video games for 12 hours straight to the detriment of everything else in your life. That's hyperfocus. What we are aiming for is flow.
So how do we actually get there? Well, flow isn't just some random accident. It's a learnable skill with specific evidence-based triggers. You need a perfect match between your skill level and the challenge. You need clear direction. You definitely need to quiet that inner critic. But the absolute bedrock of this entire state, unbroken, sustained attention. That means every single push notification, every little vibration in your pocket is a direct threat to achieving this state. You simply cannot enter flow if you are constantly task switching.
Section 5. Reclaiming your mind. Digital minimalism.
All right, here is exactly how you secure your mind against the thieves. First, you have to recognize the traps. You have to see the infinite scroll and the push notifications for what they really are, lockpicks picking away at your attention. Second, you start implementing task batching and designated deep work sessions. And I mean sessions where your phone is literally in another room. Finally, to repair that neuroplasticity, you have to replace those low-value digital habits. Rediscover reading a physical book. Re-engage with a creative hobby like painting or coding or gardening. Spend focused, quality time with your loved ones, where you actively choose physical presence over digital distraction. This single-task focus is exactly how you heal your brain and lock down the vault for good.
Because at the end of the day, reclaiming your focus is about so much more than just being productive at work. It's about your life. Your memories shape your identity, and your identity shapes your life. Every single time a notification asks to borrow a little bit of your mind, it is taking a piece of your presence. Deep focus is fundamentally about experiencing your actual life, without constantly looking away at a glowing rectangle.
I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought. Your life, your beautiful, finite life, is quite literally shaped by whatever you choose to pay attention to. You have the science, you have the strategy, and now you know exactly how the heist works. So the only question left to ask yourself is, what will you focus on next?